Buenos días.
Good morning, one more year. Just being, as I'm the oldest person, I'm the master of ceremonies, and I will introduce you to my other two invited guests. Before I commence with giving my two colleagues the floor and to talk about the most important things, that is to say, to allow you to ask questions, I would like to say that today is the traditional day that we do this. I think the maintained tradition in this case represents the stability that we all seek after and we want. And now, in this case, I will introduce you to the maximum leaders of Spanish television, Radio Televisión Española. I would like to say that in days we think that are very special for us, we are accompanied by Luis Escalella. He's the president. He's the counterpart of Pedro Pérez at a world scale. He's the president of all the producers of cinema, producers at the world level, that is, including the Americans. Thank you very much, Luis, for being here. And even more so at this moment, Enrique Cerezo, who I imagine all of you know, who had been a long time since he'd been to the film festival, president of EGEDA, EGEDA, José Portela, vice president of the FAPAE, and IBAYA, one of the two associations in the Basque Country, Carlos Juárez,
del País Vasco,
president of the other association, APV, and Ramón Colom, president of PROA. That's to say, in this moment, all of the producers are Spanish producers are represented. In this case, all of the producers throughout the world through Luis Escalella. Without further ado, first I'll give the floor to the director of Spanish TV, and then I'll talk, and then the new president of Spanish TV. Radio Televisión Española is Ignacio Corrales, who knows a lot about production, and you have the floor. Thank you very much, Pedro. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here, accompanying us in our joint press conference with the FAPAE to see what Televisión Española is wagering in favor of good movies. There's no better stage than the San Sebastian Film Festival, who we support one edition after another, to sign the commitment of Televisión Española with the audiovisual industry. I want to take full advantage of this moment to congratulate José Luis Rebordinos, the director of the film festival, for once again, for the second year in a row, for decidedly supporting our cinema and allowing Televisión Española to be present with 7 films, 4 in the official section, another 3 in other sections. For us, this is very important, this figure. These films, they're complemented with awards and participations and presence in different festivals throughout the year. Apart from the 17 awards or Goyas that we've received through the films that we have participated in, Televisión Española has also formed part of recent productions of very high quality and interest, and we've been represented as well in the main world festivals like Berlin, Toronto, and Cannes. It seems, and it's been confirmed already, that the film that's going to represent Spain in the Oscar Awards is Snow White, Blancanieves, participated by Spanish TV or Televisión Española, Pablo Bercel, which makes us feel very satisfied, and we want to congratulate the producers and the director as well. Televisión Española continues, and is going to continue with its commitment with culture and fulfilling its investment and supporting the audiovisual sector in every different aspect within the possibilities we have. Our participation is going to go beyond the mere complying to things. We should not forget that the greater notoriety and greater success of the films, and the more money they make when they're premiered, we will obtain better results in the different screens on TV and also at an audiovisual level. Over the last year, the last 12 months, Spanish TV, Televisión Española has programmed 275 titles of Spanish cinema, vis-a-vis 25 titles shown by private TVs. So this is 15 more than last year. It's almost 6%. It's a 6% increase vis-a-vis last year. And what's really significant, and not only do we program them and show them and not only in residual times, but more than half of these are programmed in prime time in the different, of the different channels we have in the group. Throughout the year, this year, 2012, Televisión Española has committed itself as committed financing with 25 titles, films, amongst them the next film by Pedro Almodóvar, Los Amantes Pasajeros by Alex de Iglesia, Las Brujas de Zugarramurdi, Isabel Coixet, Fernando León de Aranoa, and Emilio Aragón, and another 20 or 21 films. Our objective, apart from complying to our commitment investment, is to participate in the greatest amount of good quality films and to be the reference interlocutor, so to speak, to start up any audiovisual project in our country, and to be the platform for exhibiting and promoting, despite the difficult economic moment that we're living through at present, and to contribute as much as we can to make the sector more dynamic. One of the tools that we have is the agreement that Televisión Española has with the ICO. Televisión Española is going to continue to participate in films that will cover our needs, our criteria, and they want to comply to our public service criterion, and with capacity and the possibility of obtaining a positive response from the market, from the audience and viewers, quantitatively as well as qualitatively speaking. And what's even more, it's so important, an international exposure of these films as well. Up until this moment, and this continues to be, and following the editorial line of this of our company, culture, giving cultural support to documentary, more than 20 documentaries have been filmed, 3 animation projects, and movies. So therefore, movies for TV and miniseries, which are consolidating themselves as a genre and a format within the fiction format. These are another one of the ways of taking cinema to TV, and they are achieving support from the audience. Without abandoning the biopic line, we want to combining it with historical events. This year we also want to open a theme line of audiovisual projects that adapt literary works, novels or plays or short stories. At the end of the year, we think will vary according to the different projects that are submitted and the size of them or the scale of them, where we believe that we will participate in about 90 audiovisual projects with a varied nature. That's all, Pedro. I'm now going to give you the floor again. Thank you very much, Ignacio. Well, like every year, positive things have been said, and there are a few unfortunate things. First of all, just like Ignacio Corrales has just said, I want to refer to the director of the film, José Luis. And for one reason, for us, for we Spanish producers, the San Sebastian Film Festival was a few days, but a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of contacts of presenting our harvests and starting to sow the seeds for the future. José Luis has turned it into a festival that lasts 365 days. We've seen each other a lot of times this year. He's had the delicacy of calling a lot of people, and therefore we feel participants. We are 6 films, Spanish films in the official section. I'm not going to give you titles because you know the names of the films, but it's not a coincidence. It's because we've talked a lot and not fighting too much and discussing a lot and make it grow over 365 days, this film festival. So therefore, José Luis, thank you very much for the line that you've taken. And from our part, it's small because it's important at the same time, I believe. It's important festival, that's to say films, and the important thing is to talk about movies and very little about figures and other things. But unfortunately, we've also, on these occasions, we've got to talk about this as well. The main reason that we are here together is precisely to talk about Televisión Española, and for Televisión Española to talk about something that's important for us. I was just after taking my post with the position of the new president will stop being, he's about to finish his tenure, but we had a meeting. He still hadn't named the director. We had a meeting which was in tune. We're all in tune. I think that he thought I was going very hard on him, but if he didn't realize why I asked him so much support for Spanish cinema, quite probably over the months he's realized it. The moment in which the earth is falling to pieces, and I say that in the presence of the president of Televisión Española, we need Televisión Española. We need Televisión Española because we're going through years where if we don't remedy this, there may be a break which in the future we will regret. And once the director has taken his post, and once it's never good for someone when things are stopped. But I think with the data that he's going to provide and the promotion of the president of Televisión Española, who's here with us today, that we can feel very relaxed. Above all, and I say above all, we can have it comparing it to what other sections. How other sections are going. So that before you say your word, President, thank you very much on behalf of Spanish television and Spanish production, because I know that the traditional support of Televisión Española is going to be maintained, or probably, but that's what we're asking for, it's probably going to increase. I think that in the last editions, the president of Televisión Española wasn't here, and it's more than significant that he is present here today, and I repeat, I want to thank him publicly. Another part of the here is, but that way, reason why we're here is memory. I'm not going to talk about this because I'm handed over, and we can download this with all of through our iPad and other devices, so it's available for you. The memorandum, it's a document perhaps that you can't read in one go, but it is a document that you can consult to see how production is in each of the different autonomous community and how our sales are going abroad. Most significant data is that in 2011, audiovisual production increased its international sales in 18.7%. We're sick and tired of hearing everywhere that from this crisis we'll only get out of it by selling abroad, and cinema has grown in its exports vis-a-vis even audiovisual product which aren't feature films, TV programs. The turnover, and we're a bit behind, but practically the figures that we've got, we've closed 2010, the turnover in the sector of independent production dropped 14.67%. And employment dropped by 10.37%. Practically, this is data which is repeated in the interannual up until June 2012. We are concerned, we are clearly above the drop of the activity in the service sector, in our activity as well as in direct employment. This isn't good news, so therefore, at the present moment, vis-a-vis the data that we always give you every year, productions which are whole 100% Spain, we make a comparison with the previous year. Up until the 23rd of September 2011, there were 99, and up until 23rd of 71, 28% less than the previous year. Co-productions, we had 29. This year we've got 34, so that is to say 17.24% more. The trend is therefore is growing in co-production. If we add both films that are 100%, including co-production, and only Spanish films 100%, 2011 to 128. This year we've got 105. There's a drop of 17.96%. Shoots which have been notified up until the present moment underway, there's 130 in 2011. This year there's 95, so therefore there's a drop in 26.92%. And premieres of films, 89 in 2011, 80 this year, 2012. So there's a drop of 10.1%. And as regards to the data, and I want to thank Rentrek, who always provides the data up until the last day, above the official data, which takes much longer, as you may well understand. At present, on the 23rd of September 2012, And as regards the previous year, 2011, the total box office figure was 460 million euros. This year, there's 412 million euros. That is to say, a drop of 10.43% as regards to box office figures. And as regards audience, the drop is 9.5%. Concerning, because we were already in a bad situation. Spanish cinema, in 2011, it was 64.4 million is what we took in, and this is a quota, a share of 14%. This year, it's 46.14 million is what we've taken in at the box office, which is a share of 11.2%. Despite the fact that there are several films this year that I'm not going to spend my time to tell you, because you know them very well, that have been what we call big box office hits. We've still got 23 that have been told that important premieres, and within these 23 premieres, we can highlight Blancanieves, and I want to congratulate Blancanieves. Not as going to represent us in the Oscar Awards, and I think they've got clear possibilities of winning the Oscar, albeit the other two films won, that's shown in this film festival, and Grupo 7 had a lot of merit, and Spain could have taken 3 films quite on the way to the Oscar Awards, but in another form by way. So we got the premiere of The Artist and the Model and Blancanieves, Atraco, The Impossible, which undoubtedly, and we're going to see it tonight at the film festival, will be a box office hit. I dare say this, and No One Dies, 7 Days in Havana, Bypass, Todo es Silencio, Fin, Invasor, La Banda Picasso, El Cuerpo, which will be premiered, I think, for the 28th of December, is the last one. So therefore, I believe we will increase percentage and box office figures, and we will probably end up having close to last year's box office figures. This is what I hope, nevertheless, but you would agree, for better or for worse, the forecasts that we've made within the framework of this film festival quite normally have been fulfilled at the end of the year. And with one little paragraph, I would like to say, to talk about what's happening, or what's going on at present. And what's going on concerns us, what's happening at the present moment. The other day, the Minister for Education, Culture and Sports was at the film festival. He's a friend of mine, by the way, and I don't mind saying so, albeit we have to fight in many meetings and many occasions. And I'm talking about the proposal of a coalition, a great coalition, quite seriously, and a little bit of, and joking on the same time, and I say this in front of the independent, according to the statutes of the President of Televisión Española. We have always embraced any coalition, but first of all, we would like the coalition to start within the government itself. They more agreed, more amongst themselves, and within the Ministry of Culture itself. We go and link to any coalition, but the truth is, and I say this as serious as this moment is, that is to say, those that have got responsibility upon Spanish cinema, it's not good that they should launch balloons into the air to see what the other ministry is doing, or the ministry itself. The Spanish cinema is very serious. A model, it takes a lot of years to put underway, and it's a lot of years to modify it. And now we have a problem that I want you to get to know. The subsidies and the grants, the main subsidies are paid 2 years after the premiere. That is to say, the budgets of 2013, we calculate over 50 million euros should pay the films that are being premiered in 2011, where everyone has been paid. So therefore, the producer has been paid with a loan facilitated by the ICO. It's a debt, therefore, and I say this very seriously, it's a debt, it's a state debt. And if at present our country is undergoing difficulties vis-a-vis credibility in foreign markets, it's due to the doubt upon the lack of payment of the debts it has as a country vis-a-vis the banks and financial entities of other countries. The same thing happens here. When the budgets are passed, the first thing we do before changing the models is to pay what you owe. And in this case, we do say it quite clearly, so that there's no doubt that our request is simply that we pay what is owed, and then we can change the world later, or the model. We've worked upon a new model. We've accepted the challenge of the government that is under power, who said at that time that we were going to depend less upon the direct subsidies and direct aid, and we were going to depend more upon tax write-offs. And from the first moment, we did embrace it, but you must understand, we are legitimate. When the government that comes along, it has to be in an agreement or in a consensus internally. In that challenge, we want to go even further than the government. We are prepared that in the final stage, make cinema be paid with the income or the turnover of the cinema. It should be paid by the cinema taxes. We would be prepared at the end of the day to leave the general state budgets. There are European models that you know quite well, and if the money comes from what is taken in at the box office, we are prepared to use a new model in our relationship with the ministry, which in this case we would depend less upon it, as well as in the relations with the TVs channels. We would always go to Televisión Española as the main dynamic force in audiovisual production, but we are also prepared to reform the framework with the same idea that the cinema pays for the cinema and our relationship with TVs. Now, our model is almost completed, and I talked to the Secretary of State that next week we will initiate will start up a negotiation meeting to change into the new model between the producers and the administration. And so therefore, not only do we take in the idea of being all together, but we also propose this at the moment in which this government came into power. And I got a bit serious, and I think that you must understand it's very serious what I'm talking about, when there a lot is at risk. And obviously to turn the page means that we've got to take out what has been erased in the previous page. We can help as much as we can. We want the same treatment. We were the first people to tighten our belts. We had a big drop in the last cut in the budget, and we did it with a smile on our face. But I think in the famous VAT issue that I don't want to address, but you can see the consequence of this, just like in this issue, we want an egalitarian treatment, just like you're treating other sectors. Sorry, Mr. President, but I had to get serious. But now it's up to you to say what Spanish TV has to do and what has Spanish Televisión Española has for us. The President of Televisión Española, Radio Televisión Española, as we say. Why? Thank you very much, Pedro. A lucid intervention is not difficult. Congratulations, José Luis. Today, the unanimous, critically, there's a unanimous agreement, and we're celebrating this, and I'm sure that the figures will be even better at the end of the year. Thank you very much, Pedro, for your words, and I take on behalf of the corporation and its employees and the people who work in Televisión Española. For me, it's always said, but it's an honor to be here in this first festival before you, this day which is organized and which is sponsored by Televisión Española within the San Sebastian Film Festival. As the president of the corporation and on behalf of the corporation, and personally as well as and above all on behalf of the employees in Televisión Española, we are wagering in favor, like we do decidedly to, and we will do this in the future, to support Spanish cinema. We do this making available on your screens in our programs, and that is as a shop window, so that the films produced by Spanish TV in audiovisually can be seen by most of the citizens. Radio Televisión Española is a public company which has a function as a public service, and within this service, public service function, we have a clear commitment vis-a-vis society, and that commitment, and in the audiovisual world, is called Spanish cinema. Spanish cinema is one of the greatest reflections of this commitment that we have, and it is an element, a clear element, where we translate our commitment vis-a-vis public service, our corporation, as we call it. We understand it. Cinema with a capital letter should be fit into it, commercially speaking, as well as from the innovative and avant-garde perspective which exists in cinema, and I think we should feel proud of it. Our channels not only open their audiences to exhibiting of films from Spanish cinema, but also, and the president of FAPAE has said this, we understand our role as dynamic agents within the audiovisual industry, and more particularly in cinema animation, in this TV movies in its different manifestations. In a sense, as cinema and capital letters, so to say, as a whole, when we do something in Televisión Española, in the audiovisual and cinema world, the rest of the industry also, when Televisión Española wages in favor of a project, that project has its career defined, but the rest of the projects, considering the cinema cycle and the production of what is audiovisual, is alive at every given moment. That is why I want to make quite clear the enormous sense of responsibility that we have vis-a-vis our role as promoters of the Spanish cinematographic or film industry. The figures back the clear cinephile vocation. Spanish Televisión Española offers 92% of the films that are Spanish films, and it participates in different initiatives and audiovisual initiatives and projects, and more particular, approximately about 50 films and documentaries. For Televisión Española, the key undoubtedly is in the quality offers by our cinema to a great measure. Even now, in these austere moments, we have to finance films that will comply to the public service requirements, and if they work in the box office and commercially and to the audience in general, that's even better. We wager in favor of this because we understand that these films with this commercial success is what enables them to be broadcast in Spain. So we want to be involved in the whole panoply of the Spanish cinema industry, in the search of the ambition and as well as alternative cinema that don't, in this initial commercial projection or in this figure, we are participating nevertheless in the 3 films that have participated. Ignacio Corrales said in this race to the Oscar, which was resolved a few minutes back with the naming of Blancanieves. Congratulations to the film, to Pablo Berger and all of the people that have intervened in the film. But we are also present, and we're very proud of this, of choosing what subsequently the industry chooses in Grupo 7 and the artist and the model in their race towards the Oscars. As I said before, Televisión Española renews its wager in favor of cinema. We believe that we want to become a window through which people can see the great directors at home, for example, and those that are being consolidating themselves, who will be the directors of the future. We want the filmmakers of the future to be able to show now their first works on the screen. That's why we continue to wage and have done, are doing, and will do in the future. We think that the programming on Spanish TV to be open to Spanish cinema and all its programs. We're talking about broadcasting and the promotion of cinema. That is, say, the essential role that we also play in the field of promoting cinema. We've not only got our windows to the broadcasting of cinema or films, but also dissemination programs, so that the big audience can get to see it, so that all of Spain, all of those who can see it, or that listen to us, can learn about our cinema, our films in Spain. There are titles of programs that ring a bell: Días de Cine, Versión Española on TV, but we've also got radio, Cine de Película, the Seventh Vice. And without forgetting the enormous potential that our website have, our interactive services which are present also play a very important role that promote and disseminate our cinema. And there's no doubt that in the future will be promoted exponentially, I'm sure, through our website, RTVE.es. Another important element that we give in the corporation to our cinema is our presence and our collaboration with the Films Festival. And for this, well, not only are we present with our films, do we participate in our films and with our dissemination and broadcasting, but we also contribute a little grain of sand with the award by Televisión Española called Otra Mirada, which wants to give a prize to the film that better reflects the role of women in the world that surrounds them. The jury has gotten together, and if you'll allow me, I will give you something. The film that has won is Seis Actos by the director Jonathan Grufinkel in this sector of nuevos directores, new directors. I want to refer to the film that has a special mention, has deserved a special mention within our award. Film is El Atentado de Fiat Dueri, the attack, and which was in the official section. So therefore, apart from our presence and the films and the awards and the coverage that we're providing, we are also present trying to take this festival and everything that happens to the viewers and people who listen to radio and the people that surf the net. So therefore, we, not only our films, but the rest of the films that compete and participate in the festival, their protagonists, everything that surrounds, or we try to include everything that surrounds a film. And finally, we also transmit the final gala live of this festival. And I'm going to finish, because the important thing here is to see and to enjoy the best we've got in our cinema. I just want to reiterate the firm commitment once again, and of Spanish radio and television to continue to promote and back up within our possibilities, but with a clear vocation to the industry of Spanish cinema, and all of that with the objective that we can continue to dream and to live the reality of our cinema through our screen. This year, Televisión Española participates, Ignacio said, with 4 films in the special section that we wish the best of luck, along with the wish and for the rest of best of luck for the rest of the films that participate. We feel that we have won an award because we've been invited and because of our association with the San Sebastian Film Festival, and undoubtedly we will continue to do so in the future. Thank you very much. Okay, we're open to whatever questions you want to ask. If you deem, some of us know each other, but when you take the floor, please say who you are, name, and who you work for. Rocío García from El País. Guy, good morning. Rocío García from El País. That's right. It's a question for Mr. Pedro Pérez. You've said here today that you would be prepared to leave the general state budget. I'm not too sure whether you consider you're already outside it, because bearing in mind the forecast that we've got for 2030, what's going to happen with the 2013 forecast, and with that 30 million that seems that's going to be in the National Cinematographic Fund, there will be sufficient to pay the debts that are being contracted by the state that you've talked about. I didn't read your newspaper, but I'm under the impression you've got very good information. The general state budget, 3 important things are happening to this budget. The least important is that we're here today, and the second most important, which is that Blancanieves is going to the Oscars, and another very important thing is that the government is approving the draft of the general state budget that will communicate to the Congress, I imagine, tomorrow. And as of there, it goes through Parliament. Our request is going to be very clear. Undoubtedly, not only don't consider that we're not outside the general state budget yet, but that within this enormous amount of statements, I prefer the ones that are more responsible. And I've heard from the General Director of the Secretary of State and the Minister that they're going to combine between direct aid and tax write-offs. We want all of this to be written down and drafted so that the ideas can be clearly talked about by the different ministries involved. We're going to be doing everything we can so that we can comply what we said justly, that if this country considers to go back to achieve credibility and seriousness, to attain the commitments with the debt it has, a debt that has been contracted for 2013, is the 50-odd millions that are owed, and in this case, to those people that have made films back then. So therefore I'm convinced, and I'll do everything in my hands so that that quantity, that amount, can form part in the future general state budget. And once it's approved by the Congress or the Parliament and then the Senate, we will do whatever we can to convince whoever's in charge, who in this case are the parliamentary groups. Was everything that the president of Televisión Española said was totally clear? No, I've got a question. Over here. I'm over here. Izcarrón from La Razón. Could you go further in depth? what's the offer, or what's the term to leave the general state budget, and that means that you have to give in and leave and only use write-offs and forget about the subsidies. No, I didn't say anything of the kind, and I want to repeat is that what we're doing is to accept when a political party prepares its electoral program, we understand, and I think they also understand, that it's a contract with the citizens that they sign, and they proposed a model that they've got to develop. What I've said, first of all, is the first thing is to comply with the commitments that have been undertaken and contracted, and then that's first one. Then we sit down and talk so we can prepare this new model. We've got it. You know many types of systems. I'm not going to say the surname it has, nor the nationalities. That nationality, there are many ways and there are different formulae that where we can obtain money from the activity that can come back in, be reinvested into the activity. But it's not difficult. Master Berlanga many years ago said that we didn't need a legislator, we needed a translator. We have sufficient models around us in different countries. I'm not going to repeat some of the things I said before. Choose the French or the German or the Italian or the British model. Whatever of the four is valid for us. But what we don't want is that before setting up a model, we break down the previous model. So therefore we're prepared to breaking down and getting rid of the other model as long as we construct and build a new model. And in this case, we've taken more steps in breaking down the previous model than to creating the new model. I prefer to give you the headline of where all our hypotheses and our lines of work are going to that meeting, and that the Secretary of State says that we're going to get together next week, and that's what we will offer to him. But I repeat, the headline is to set up something new or to break down something old. You need an alternative new model, and we've got some commitments, state commitments, that are as serious as any other type of debt. And when we take care of the commitments of the state, we can talk about changing the model. Yes, over here, Luis Martinez from El Mundo. Two questions. A couple of months ago, we only talked about what would be the percentage of the write-off or tax figure. That's not on the agenda now. All of a sudden, we don't know whether we're talking about 40 or 30 or 20%. And the question, quite simply, is where is that percentage now? Because a little while back, that's the only thing we were talking about. And another question is, a while back, Susana de la Sierra, the director of the KA, said that there's the possibility, vis-a-vis this new model, of changing the objective subsidies, do them a priori like the French model, which has to analyze the trajectory of the producer and give him the money beforehand and so on and so forth. So that was a proposal that she maintains, which is an old proposal, but it sounded like it was new, at least as she told it to us right here, or at least in the 5th paragraph in one of the articles, a press article that she released. Could you talk about that as well? And excuse me a second. And that's all for the time being. They're the questions I would like to ask you. You've known me for a long time, and I usually repeat the same thing, and I stop repeating it when it's complied to or fulfilled. We accept what the government was talking about upon the tax write-off, and we're talking about 40%, which we believe would replace the effect of the direct aid. I continue to say the same thing. And as regards to the statements of Susana de la Sierra, I'm sure they were well-intentioned, but we're at a moment, and the president of Televisión Española said this. I heard some statements of his, or when he was in Parliament. The budgetary restrictions are for everyone, so therefore at a given moment in which I have highlighted that the first priority is to pay what is owed, and this is something that's clearly understood by everybody involved, to introduce a model that what it has to do is to forward money vis-a-vis what is already owed, well, quite sincerely, with the budgetary restrictions that exist, it's simply non-viable. So therefore, I believe I think about both sides, but everybody's got to hold their own. I'm talking on behalf of the producers. Televisión Española talks on behalf of Televisión Española, and the government is not here present today, talks about defends the government. This question is more a question to the government instead of us. Before, I said, I've forgotten, there wasn't money to pay, it was prorated. There was never No, there wasn't. No, the state has never stopped paying And that's our guarantee. But that possibility exists. I'm not too sure whether you've contemplated, well, a state can declare itself insolvent, but I don't contemplate that possibility. Sorry, we can't hear the question without the microphone. I understand that it's the coalition. We've got the president of all the distributors of FEDICINE, and not the president of the exhibitors is here, but he could be here. We are in permanent touch. The entire sector, we're always in contact trying to seek the best for the sector at the end of the day, for who is the customer of what. The client, what we all do, which is cinema. This is just a work meeting of figures and papers and documents to see the new models that could be better, and we will see that as of next week. The question this journalist asked.
Soy Alicia.
Alicia Garcia from the FAPAE agency. I would thought the model is quite clear, that you've advanced quite a lot. Have an approximate calculation what would happen if that formula worked? To say, how much money are we talking about? That reduction, or a reduction in the budget, which can be as brutal as you're announcing, how much would be needed? Well, this proposal comes from our colleagues. We're still working on it. It's nothing new. We've used systems that exist in other countries, and it would have a great advantage. It would take a load of the general state budget, and we would obtain money directly from who at the end of the day uses or consumes cinema in its different smaller or greater or middle-sized screens, whatever. So therefore I repeat, you know that I'm not inventing the model. It works perfectly well. And our calculations is that it would provide two things: less pressure to the general state budget and more money for new cinema. I'm not going to give you figures at present because I think we've got to accept the meeting, after the meeting with the administration, and they should know first of all our Excel spreadsheets. Well, if there aren't any further questions, I would like to know whether you have made a calculation of the increase in the 21% in culture in the 23 days, and that it's been enforced in cinema. How has that affected it? Well, we do have data, but we're not going to provide it. Well, I say this quite well. I answered the minister. I said that, and this is much more serious. That is, we've all got to think that, and this has been explained, this is a measure to achieve more at the box office. It's not serious that we go out, this weekend was better than the previous weekend, but I can tell you that things aren't going well, but we already knew that. It's normal when you increase the tax burden, obviously people consume less. This is not something that we've invented. We presented the models before, but I don't think it'd be serious that we provided data to see if one weekend is better than another. What's happening is what we expected. We've handed over a model to the government done by an independent company, which may get it right or wrong, like a business plan. But what's happening is exactly what the study said. But I think we've got to be very cautious. Instead of providing data every 4 or 5 days, let's wait a little lot longer so that we can see the consequences on a bit long. Ramon Colom, I'm not going to ask you a question, but I would like to intervene in order to thank the two people responsible on the panel of Radio Televisión Española for a couple of things, or many things, and to remind you of other things as well. On this screen here, permanently, we see a phrase which says, Televisión Española is cinema. This is something which is true. And we thank them very much because for over 30 years, Televisión Española, the history of Spanish cinema is linked to Televisión Española, apart from a certain period of time in the history of Spanish television española is also linked to cinema. And I think we should feel thankful for that, because otherwise we couldn't write the history of Spanish cinema from the production perspective without the role played by Televisión Española. We evidently want that role to continue to be played in the future. Sometimes the decisions that have been made, we may like them more or less, but quite obviously we are satisfied. I would add simply just one more thing. I've liked the idea that the president of the corporation of Televisión Española has spoken not only on his behalf and the managers, but on behalf of all of the workers in public radio and television. There are also parallelisms set up on behalf of the workers and other times on our own behalf, that we are two groups that are confront each other, and we're not. We understand quite perfectly well what are the approaches of the professionals in Televisión Española, their anguish and their fears. Possibly we lack communication between both parts or both sides, because the Spanish audiovisual industry is not only producers, but also the producers that are inside the TV channels. But quite obviously, and there is something that I would like to ask at the end of the day, and that is to say, when the president of the Spanish Television Corporation talks about the professionals, he should not forget that the professionals who are in the private industry in Spain, and that is to say, we, the people who work, and the people who work with us, those professionals of all types, the cameramen and women and the scriptwriters, in a certain way also depend upon public radio and television, because we also work on many occasions for them, and vice versa. Without them, it would not be possible. Vis-a-vis private channels, we always say that our model is to collaborate between public radio, television, and private companies and firms who dedicate themselves to the production, creative production. It's not only a question of money. You've got the screens, we create products, and we require to have access to your screens so that the works of our creators, be they the authors of Blancanieves, Snow White, or other films projected in this film festival or that are going to go to the Oscars, can get to be known by all of the Spanish citizens. And that is a model that should be borne in mind, and it should be supported more and respected by the other private initiatives. That's what I would like to say. Thank you. Do you want to say anything? Yes, Ramon, thank you very much. Your opinion, I especially value your opinion, because you're here with us and you've spent many years in this job. I said before, we are completely aware of the fact that we occupy a certain area. We've got windows to disseminate and broadcast. We've got products for self-consumption, and we've got to disseminate and promote the rest of the industry from our windows, from our shop windows, so to speak. But we are very aware of the dynamic role which is indispensable that television, when you switch on, and it initiates the cycle of the audiovisual productive process within what's going around it. We are completely aware of this, not only because of the fact that it brings about more work that is induced into other industries, especially a project, and that project it's used in Spanish national radio and television. There are others that have to wager in favor of them, other operators as well. So that we can clearly have that vision in mind. Thank you very much. Fernando Lara is my name. I would like to know, amongst the measures that are being addressed, I'm not too sure whether we're forwarding anything vis-a-vis what's going to be talked about in the meeting next week. The compulsory vision, as has been mentioned in the past, is this going to be used in the fund of the ICA? There's a Spanish television as well as the private TVs that say that the investment carried out by the different television channels, which are set forth in the law to back up the ICA cinematography fund, so therefore it would be more autonomous than with the general state budgets. It would be very difficult for it to do so. It's a bit premature, Fernando, because we're doing a lot of work vis-a-vis this, but in the model, if we went all out, the ICA model would be exceeded. It would be an independent center, such as in many neighborhood countries, but it's a bit premature to say this. Somebody else had asked for the floor, I think.
Luis Alberto Escal. Bueno.
Hi, Chelo Loredo. I'm a producer and vice president of Divos. Divos is the animation producers. My question is for the people in charge of Spanish radio and television. If we're going to acquire a commitment for Spanish animation on behalf of the TV and Clan Television, which is a channel in which the Spanish animation production isn't we don't have a sufficient share, especially bearing in mind children's the hours that children, the time slot for children. Well, Clan, the channel, the offer there is very important of in our TV offer, but undoubtedly in Clan animation is key, and our commitment is to support the channel, to promote the channel, and quite clearly we'll have to sit down with the producers in the country in order to come to an agreement, and our will obviously is to promote the channel and therefore and the animation industry in this country. I insist also within our possibilities, but our vocation is quite clear to promote the channel.
Alberto
Escalella, as I said, president of the FAPAE, has worked with the Spanish producers and has worked with Spanish television as well. He's working with them. Before, I want to thank you very much for inviting the director of the festival, congratulating for a festival which is one of the most important festivals at an international level, and at the FAPAE for having invited me and the people from Televisión Española. As the president of FAPAE, I feel quite concerned by the news. I did the newspaper article that you said. I'm very concerned. Everything that we read, we all agree that the emotional memory of a country is cinema. We can't stop supporting it, and even less so supporting in moments of crisis. I also believe that we agree that there's no cinema universally that can be carried out apart from American cinema that has support of other financial support from banks and circuits that all the rest of the countries don't participate in. None of the world cinematographic movements can have a constant can constantly grow without the support of the government. We, the International Confederation of Producers in our country, where Spain is a very important player at a world scale, and it always has been and continuing. I'm Argentinian, so therefore at a Latin American level it's the most important of all. Any type of co-production that one thinks about carrying out can't be carried out without the support or the backing of our counterpart in Spanish cinema. We've made a lot in my company, and the truth is, in every case, we have felt and we have received a great support. As regards Spanish television, I'm a co-producer of La Priva, of a film that's called The Attack, El Atraco, better said. It talks about the relations with Spain and Argentina at the end of the 1950s. Argentina has been very successful. That film is supported and backed by, without the support of Spanish television, we wouldn't have been able to make it. I want to thank Mrs. Severian, who undertook the project. It's a period piece. Without support, we can't make these films, so therefore I hope, and that they continue to do this in the future as you've done in the past. Thank you very much. Thank you, Luis. Juan Gordon seems that has asked for the floor. Thank Juan Gordon, producer of Elena Films. Pedro, you've talked about a system, a new system, a self-financing of a system for cinema. You've talked about issues that have to go to the possible income or revenue at a subsidy level, and how that can be replaced by other systems. I believe that one of the most fundamental aspects or parts of the self-financing of our industry has to go through an increase in the number of people that go and see our films. So therefore, I think that an important role can be played by Televisión Española, which is the promotion, as Leopoldo said, of the Spanish cinema, where television participates vis-a-vis not only increasing the ratings in the broadcasting and dissemination of the film, but to bring about an increase in the box office figures at the cinema theaters. We are seeing that it is a very effective instrument which works quite clearly with the private channels, and where they radically wager in favor of promoting those films in which they participate in when they're premiered at the cinema theater. What I'm listening to, I think it's an approach, it seems to be a continuation process of Televisión Española, of the promotion that's carrying out. I think there's an opportunity to take a qualitative leap forward vis-a-vis what Televisión Española has done so far, vis-a-vis promoting the premiere in cinema theaters. And I want to ask you whether you've addressed this as a challenge or not, or whether you're considering this seriously. Of course, Juan, we not only want to comply with the investment we've talked about. I said at the beginning, it's investment as well as the promotion of cinema and our domestic products. The best things go for producers, the best we'll get a better return on our investment, and we'll have more exposure of the films that are made. And we are going to work upon the promotion of cinema, yes, within the limitations that we've got in the promotional work within the group of the different screens. But not only are we happy with just investing, we want to promote what we invest upon. That's why we invest. We've got our advertising regime. It's a regime when you go to cinema which limits us quite more than many other TV channels, but we'd be glad to do so, but we've got to comply to the law. But it's something that we have to work upon, undoubtedly. Now, obviously, there's a limitation, but I think there's still plenty of room to grow in this field.
Última pregunta.
Last question. Yes, for the people from Televisión Española, the representative, that undoubtable and fundamental support for Spanish television, for Spanish cinema, this could be extended to European cinema. That is to say, in Spanish television, European cinema is a bit limited because it's not exhibited too much or shown too much, but it might go against other types of more powerful type cinema. The objectives in Spanish television is it to promote a greater quantity apart from Spanish cinema, European cinema as well? Well, quite clearly we back cinema and Spanish cinema, and as much as possible European cinema, especially good cinema, and within our commitment to promote cinema and the selection criterion that we have set forth when choosing these projects, that there are co-productions where European cinema exists, and obviously we will promote them as well. I'm sorry, we can't hear the question. Yes, that's true. In fact, there's a weekly slot for European cinema in our channels. Last question, but it seems that there's one second last question, which is just before the last question. Thank you. Congratulations to the panel and what you're talking about. Do that, the Valencian Institute for Audiovisual, for the audiovisual. I just want to say, in all of these negotiation meetings, also bear in mind territoriality. That is to say that we are prepared and we feel like working together, undoubtedly, that we exist, that all of our policies at an audiovisual level can also be worked along together, along with Televisión Española, and thank you. In our case, I can assure you, territoriality is quite present in our meetings, and even more so nowadays. And we also, in our selection criteria for select projects, are, of course, television of all the Spaniards, of all of Spain. Well, if there aren't any further questions, Leopoldo has to close. It's up to him to close the press conference. Well, thank you very much. And I insist that we are very happy. We'll see each other again, and I hope we'll be much more ambitious and create new formulae to support our industry, which is of vital importance. So it's very competitive at every different dimension, and the need brings about virtue. We're sick and tired of listening to this in the last few days, but I think we'll be able to find new ways to consolidate, promote, and to to give even more support to our cinema. Thank you very much.